Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. So for this one we're going to return to Aberdeen, which was where I used to study, and we're going to visit one of my local breweries from my time up there, and that of course is Brewdog. So we're going to have a taste of their Dead Metaphor beer today, which is a really nice stout beer. I've never tried this one before actually, not even in the pubs, so this is a very first taste of this beer for me. This was released when I was away in Australia, so it's quite cool to actually finally get around to tasting this guy for you. So as always with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a minute or two of the history of the company. I've done a number of these reviews before, so it will be very short. If you want to go straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to the other reviews that I've done from these guys before, and there will no doubt be many of these added in the fairly near future. So anyway, Brewdog was founded by two guys, James Watt and Martin Dickey, and it was founded back in 2007 at a small brewery in the Keswick Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of Scotland, right on the tip of the monster's nose, as I always used to say. Recently they've opened up a tap room at their new brewery, and they're also planning to build a hotel as well, and you can get tours of the brewery as well, so a very impressive new facility they actually have up there at the moment. So these guys are a largely kind of experimental brewery, I guess you could call them. They're largely inspired by the American craft brewing renaissance. They list Stone Brewery in California as one of their main inspirations, but they've done some really cool things. They've had the title of World's Strongest Beer on a few occasions. They've done the Tactical Nuclear Penguin, End of History and Sink the Bismarck. They held that title with all of those beers, which is pretty cool. They also have a few interesting series actually. They've done the IPA is Dead, which is a single hop IPA, all the same base beer, but they really just highlight the different tastes you can get from each hop. They also have the Unleash the Yeast series as well, which is very cool, where they did the same base beer but only changed the yeast strains and showed you how you can actually get all the different elements from yeast, and it basically shows you all the components of the beer and how these can alter the flavour of the beer. So very, very cool in that regard as well. But one thing that's also very cool about this brewery is that they are largely fan funded, if you like. They have their Equity for Punk scheme, which allows fans like myself to buy into the brewery and get discounts in the shop and things like that, and they've used that actually to kind of basically fund a lot of their new infrastructure and things like that. They also have a kind of very thriving train of brew pubs as well. The first of these opened back in 2009 in Aberdeen, and then they've expanded ever since. They've got them in pretty much every major city in Scotland and the rest of the UK just now as well. They've got quite a few sites in Europe, including Sweden and Italy. They have one over in Japan, and they're talking about opening ones up in Australia and New Zealand and over in America as well. So just keep an eye on their website and you will see the latest developments of these guys. But these guys are very, very cool because they have kind of shown what a success Scottish food and drink can actually be. So I really like this company. They are actually the largest independently owned brewery in Scotland now as well, which is really cool. And the two guys who started it, I believe, still own about 75% of the company. I think the other 25% is what's gone to the shareholders. So very, very cool in that regard actually, that they've managed to fund so much of their infrastructure just through fan raising and through their own endeavours really. So very, very cool brewery. But anyway, that's your kind of brief history of this brewery, if you like. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. This is quite nice. The label for this guy was designed by Drew Millard, and this guy is actually brewed in collaboration with two of the kind of quite well-known beer bloggers, if you like. There's Rob from Hop Scene, Rob Derbyshire, and there's also Rich from Beercast. So Rob is from Yorkshire and Rich is from Edinburgh, so it's quite cool that they've done that. The label, as I said, is designed by Tim Millard. You can see it there on the screen there. I'll just read the blurb out for this guy as well. The name of this beer is a reference to all the kind of random terms that you get used in beer blogging these days. So it says, writing, long periods of frustration interspersed by all too brief moments of inspiration. As deadlines approach, ward off the blinkering cursor with the Dead Metaphor, a Scottish chocolate breakfast stout to fire up the synapses and get ideas flowing. Infused with Brazilian cereal, coffee, oatmeal, lactose and 100% Venezuelan black cocoa, let it unblock the mind and unblock the fingertips. Tune out all distractions and rise above the buzzwords. After all, deadlines come and go, but the beer is what matters. Dead Metaphor was brewed in collaboration with two beer writers, Rob Derbyshire from Hop Scene and Richard Taylor from the beer cast. So very, very cool beer. That's one of the old Brewdog bottle caps on the top there. They have changed all their labels there, but you can see the kind of brain popping out from the typewriter. It's actually very, very cool. It says on the side a little bit, Brewdog. At Brewdog we brew uncompromising, bold and irrelevant beer, beer with a soul and purpose. Our approach has the same contempt for the mass beer market that the old school punks had for pop culture. Brewdog is a modern day rebellion against faceless corporate bureaucracy and the bland, soulless beer they industrially produce. And this bottle is best before the 17th of July 2015, so I still have a few months on it, but I'm going to get cracking on it just now anyway. So here we go. Should have said as well, actually, this guy is 6.5% on the Richter scale. And I'm just thinking you can smell some really nice chocolate from this guy just as you're pouring it out here without paying all that much attention to it. I'll just try and get a bit more of a head on this guy. As you can see, that's a good tip for you as well. If you're wanting a good bit of head on this beer, you can always just swirl up the last little bit of it, and then you get a nice, just pour it in aggressively and you do get a nice head. So let me just bring up the camera and check that you're seeing the colour of this beer properly. It's a really nice dark rosewood colour. So yeah, I think rosewood or ebony is a kind of good way to describe it. As I say, I like using the kind of guitar woods to actually describe the flavours of these beers. I find it works very well, but you've got a nice half finger of a very tan or beige head, very frothy, not bumpy in the slightest, definitely a frothy head. Can't really see much in the way of carbonation, just a few little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head. None really sticking to the side of the glass, interestingly enough. If I hold it up to the light as well, you can get a nice kind of ruby tint on it. I'll just bring up the light and let you see that. You can see through there the sort of ruby tint just if I put the light like this. But yeah, a nice ebony coloured beer, I would say. Looks really nice, so let's get a look at the aroma. It's actually not one of the stronger aromas I've had from Brewdog beers, actually. It's quite mild in the aroma, but it's a good mix of things going on in here. So the first thing that's kind of sticking out is you've got a nice kind of dark roasted element and a kind of coffee mixing in with it. You can pick up a little bit of a milky element to it, but it's quite mild. It's mainly a kind of dark coffee and roasted character, actually. But yeah, a really nice dark roasted element to this beer. Trying to pick up some of the chocolate. It is there kind of mixed in with the milk element. There is, if you breathe it in a bit more deeply, you'll pick out the nice milky elements. So it's a really nice beer, actually. There's a definite brown sugar element to it as well, some nice dark roasted brown sugars in there. And you can smell just a little bit of the oatmeal, but as I say, the most prominent component in the aroma here is really the roasted coffee. It's got a dark, almost slightly, not quite smoky, but a very roasted aroma to this one. But it smells really nice, and you can pick up the chocolate and the milk in there too. Very, very nice looking beer. So anyway, let's get stuck into the dead metaphor. Cheers to Rob and to Rich as well. Cheers. Slanja. Now that's really nice, actually. Really, really nice beer. It's very, very smooth and actually very sweet. I was expecting something a lot more bitter than that, but it's got a very nice sweet flavour to it, actually. That's one of the things I always find with Brewdog stouts. They have a really good sweetness to them, and they sort of, as I'm talking just now, the kind of roasted bitterness comes out a bit more in the aftertaste, just on the edges of the tongue. But yeah, you can really taste the milkiness in that beer, actually. Really nice big, just a really nice big sort of creamy milkiness blankets the tongue there. You've got a nice bit of kind of sweet dark chocolate in the middle of the tongue there. It actually comes across as being a little bit more of a milky chocolate, if that makes sense. And the bitterness, the darker elements of the flavour are coming out on the back edges of the tongue there. A nice dark coffee roasted bitterness there. It's really nice. There could well be just a very, very small element of a really small element of a kind of dark fruit in there, actually. It's maybe quite a figgy one, actually, but it might be a bit candied, if that makes sense. Maybe it's more of a sort of candied fruit that's coming out of it, but it is very, very mild. It's a lot milkier than some of these fruit flavours you're going to get, actually. But yeah, you're getting this really nice milky, slightly candied fruit flavoured bubble that just moves towards the front of the tongue and sits there right at the front. You've got a nice dark roasted bitterness that just goes on the edge of the back of the tongue, and then you've got that nice milky blanket with maybe perhaps a little bit of caramel. There could be a teeny bit of caramel, but I'm sure they've not added that to it, so I'm not sure why I would pick up that flavour, but there is potentially a little bit. But it's a really nice kind of very milky chocolate flavour that goes over the middle of the tongue, and you've got this roasted coffee bitterness around the edge of it. There is an element of kind of cereal flavour to it as well. That comes out particularly in the aftertaste. You get just this line that goes down the back of the tongue, or so the middle of the tongue, sorry, and you're getting a nice oatmeal-y flavour in there. You can really pick that up. So what's really cool is they tell you exactly what's in the beer, and if you just pay attention to your palate, you really can pick up all the elements of the flavour that should be there. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I want to say this is quite mid-bodied. Very, very soft carbonation on this one, but at the same time, when you first take it in, you do get a nice bit of prickle right on the front of the tongue, but it's nice and oily and nice and silky at the same time. As I said, there's a good bit of coffee bitterness, and that kind of builds as you move into the aftertaste, and it does have a nice bit of dry character too, but it's actually a very moist and very creamy stout as well, so it has all the kind of nice different elements, and the flavours all complement each other very, very well in this one, so it's a really cool beer. Glad that I was able to keep one of these while I was away in Australia and then try it for you at a later date. But overall, very, very beautiful beer. I would recommend this as, you know, if you just want to have one beer, you know, just a beer that you'll enjoy the flavour of, this is definitely a guy to go for. If you are really into stouts, I could see why some people would want to session this, but to me, as I always say with a lot of the dark beers, for me, it's a beer that I really just want to taste and enjoy the flavours of. So this would be for me. It'd be a good dessert beer with some like vanilla ice cream or something like that. It would go really well with that. But yeah, overall it's another really awesome beer. Brewdog actually, in my opinion, really excel at their stouts. I've never had a stout that I didn't like from Brewdog. I really loved the Riptide beer, so I hope they bring that back again at some point. But Brewdog for me are probably one of the best breweries that I've had that do stouts, so any stout that you get from Brewdog, in my opinion, is definitely worth trying. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been cool to revisit Brewdog for you and to do the beer that Rob collaborated on, so I hope you've enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. There will be more Brewdog reviews for you in the near future, but I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will catch you soon. Cheers.